Welcome to another episode of logisticsales.com, where today we'll be talking about setting goals and metrics. So stay tuned in and let's get started. Welcome back, everyone. My name's Dean, and I'll be your host. And joining me, as always, are my co-hosts, Damon.
Hello.
And Gail.
Hi, guys. Great to be here.
And as we continue to build on crafting the client profile, in today's lesson, we're going to talk about setting goals and metrics. And although there's no hard rule on how sales is done, one thing remains consistent, and that's meeting your goals and getting results. So in today's lesson, we're going to show you how to crack those massive objectives into smaller, easier to handle pieces. So Gail, I'll pass it over to you and we can get started.
Thanks very much, Dean. Today, we're super excited to be diving into episode 2 of the Crafting the Client Profile series, which is going to be specific setting goals and metrics. So to give you a little bit of context, different than our previous episode about creating your vision, because this is where you're going to really start focusing on the short term. What are you going to have to do in the next couple of months, weeks, year for eventually becoming successful in your sales journey, right? So vision is definitely a lot more long-term and where do you see yourself along the journey, but this is how you're going to get there. So before we get started, I wanted to kind of go over the concept that you may have heard before, and it's setting SMART goals. It's an acronym that stands for specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and timed. So the reason why we're going to go over this is because as we're going forward today in this episode, there's a worksheet that you'll find attached here with a link. We're going to get you to go along with it and actually start filling out some of the goals for the beginning of your sales journey. But in order to set really achievable goals, they have to be SMART goals. So specific. Define a clear and specific goal. You need to really understand what exactly is the goal. Don't have it broad spectrum. Don't have it too narrow or too wide. You want it very specific as to what you're trying to achieve. Number 2 is measurable. So make sure your goal is trackable. How are you going to monitor if you are getting close to achieving your goal? How are you going to monitor if you're definitely off track? Number 3 is attainable. Create a goal that is realistic and attainable. If your goal is to become a millionaire in 2 weeks, I mean, it depends what you're doing, I suppose, but typically that's not a very attainable goal. You want to make sure that it is realistic and that it's something that you can actually achieve, right? Of course, there's going to be work involved with it, but you don't want to shoot too high and completely miss, but you want to make sure that you're also pushing yourself out of your boundaries. And then 4th is relevant. So ensure your goal aligns with your organization. So depending on where you work for, your goals may be different than somebody else, right? All of us have different personal goals. All of us have different professional goals. So make sure that they're relevant to you and the industry that you're working in or the specific job or role that you're working towards. And then lastly is time bound. So define a due date. You need to have a target timeline for when you're going to achieve those goals. If you don't set a timeline, then there's never a finish line, right? You have to have a finish line in order to really push yourself. So if you say, I'm going to make 3 customers by the end of the year, it gives you that definitive end line that you're reaching towards. So follow along with us. We have the worksheet attached here, so follow along and let's start setting some goals.
I just want to touch on real quick too, this last episode we talked about the vision and how important it was and the different things that you need to use and apply to have a strong vision. If it's strong enough, it'll gear you towards, where you want to be, where you see yourself. And now we're talking about the actual setting those goals. And, I quickly, we were talking about it earlier, we're talking about the difference between two. And truthfully, in today's lesson, it's basically the action of what you're going to have to do. And if you just look at your vision, it's probably a ton of things you think you need to do, and it might be a little overwhelming. In today's episode, we're going to help break down those steps and the actions that you need to do to get to where you want to go.
For sure. I think, maybe kind of giving you an example of this might be a little bit easier to conceptualize it. But I know, in business, if we're looking to maybe start a business, our vision is more about creating a successful business, right? For ourselves or for, people around us or our families, whatever that purpose may be. But, if we're kind of creating a vision for creating a business, now the goals help us figure out, okay, how do we get there? And how do we actually make it real for ourselves so we don't fail? And typically, there's some sort of investment that has to be done in business. So if we don't make the goals, sometimes we'll run out of money before we actually reach the actual finish line or the vision. And so this is kind of more to help you put those steps into place, so you actually know, like, okay, if I require, whether it's funds to do my project, whether it's education, whether it's a business, to develop a new career. Now we get to take a look at, okay, what type of money do I need to earn first? So now that's the goal, right? The goal could be initially, okay, am I funding this with outside funding? Can I get a bank loan? How can I make this happen? So those are the goals we're going to actually put in place. Then it's a matter about how are we going to utilize those funds. And so the second part is going into it and saying, okay, well, what am I going to need, right? And so your goals could be, okay, I need to, in a trucking business, it's like, how do I buy a truck? I'm going to need money for fuel. I'm going to have to pay the drivers. I'm going to have to get softwares. I'm going to have to get maybe authorities and licensing, insurances. Okay, do I have enough funds to cover that? So maybe my goal is just to say, okay, can I make a business plan? And okay, now can I see what those costs are going to be, so I actually have it on paper, so I know I have enough money to be able to fund it. So again, you're going to break it down. It'll take me a long time to go through an entire business plan, but you'll see how those goals kind of make it more specific versus like the vision, which was like what we did in our last episode, which was like the broader vision. This one is going to take you down to the minor steps, so you can really see, okay, do I now can I put the real steps in place to make this real?
It's kind of, you talking about making it real. If it's with all of our episodes, we're helping to steer you towards being the best salesperson you can be and to get to where you want to go. But the skills that you're going to learn through our episodes are not just going to help you in sales. They're going to help you be a better business partner, or a better employee, or a better spouse, a better brother or sister or aunt or uncle, whatever. So I guess to kind of help even put this more into perspective, if you apply these goals and your vision and put all of the, build that toolbox up to be that best version of yourself. Picture yourself having a vision of, I want to throw the biggest celebration for my parents, or I want to throw the biggest surprise party for my best friend or my brother or sister. There's my vision. I see everyone there, and it's this great celebration of their moment, if it's for a graduation or a birthday or whatever. But again, what are the steps to get there? I got to find a place. I got to get everyone out and invite them and make sure they come. I got to get the food. And so there's all these different little action steps I have to do to fill that vision. So remember, the skills you're going to learn today and in all of our episodes, you can apply in everyday life. So again, really looking forward to this episode and covering, our SMART goals, and we take it from there.
Yeah, there's a concept. I believe it's by James C. Collins. It's called the BHAG, which is a big, hairy, audacious goal, right? That's the vision. That's where you want to end up. But it's so imagine it as like a big boulder, right? A big boulder would be really, really hard to move. But if you took a chisel and started chiseling away at that boulder, you get these little rocks that you can pick up and move. So if you move one rock after the other, eventually you'll get the whole boulder moved. But if you try to do it all at once, it's insurmountable. You can't do it, right? So chipping away that big goal and making them easily digestible, smaller bite-sized pieces makes it attainable, makes it something that we can all do, right? And that's what we're going to go over today, is figuring out what are the goals that you can set for yourself for the interim, and where do we get started on this journey.
And talking about goals, we really get into like mindset goals, because this is something that we face a lot in the training that we do, is that a lot of people have a hard time keeping up. Like, the mindset is there, but the practical, like the body doesn't follow suit sometimes. The mind wants to have all these amazing opportunities, wants to create these great incomes for ourselves, but then it's like, how do we get our body to follow suit? Right? So the mind has to really align with the rest of what we're doing. And so creating these mindset goals becomes very important, and making sure that our mind is strong and building the right habits beneath that is also very important. So we're going to head into like these 5 points about mindset goals. And so the first one is like defining your purpose. Why am I doing this? What's going to motivate me to get up every morning to follow this dream that I have, this goal that I want to pursue? What's going to get me to my desired outcome? Why am I doing this for? And so be clear on your purpose. I know when I first was growing up, one of my visions was I want to be able to earn a desired income to be able to afford to have a family, have kids. And so that was kind of like my first kind of vision that I had. And That was my desire to get up in the morning and try to go work hard and get a desired income to be able to do that. And so what's yours, right? That's a question that you want to ask yourself, and as you get that, the next goal comes. And, everybody wants that jet or those fancy cars nowadays. But I mean, how are you going to obtain it, right? What's that driver that's going to get you excited to do this every day? And then the second one is commit to always growing. I like this one because it works on consistency. It's a continuous improvement process, right? We are continually growing. Same thing when we start off in school. We start off in a kindergarten, preschool, and then we go grade 1, grade 2, grade 3, and we're always looking forward to graduation. It's like, when do we finally finish? Right? So the same thing is, that's growth, right? We're doing it by steps. And that's why even after school, and we're trying to get these high incomes, or we're trying to develop ourselves as an individual, the growth process still needs to be there. In school is structured. After school, we have to do it ourselves. And I like this quote by Jim Rohn. And what it says is, if you want to have more, you have to become more. For things to change, you have to change. For things to get better, you have to get better. For things to improve, you have to improve. If you grow, everything grows for you. That's by Jim Rohn. And, a great point is, if you want more in life, then you're going to have to kind of match it, right? You can't just expect the highest income and not do anything for it. So just be prepared to do a little bit more to be able to grab that.
I think it holds true too if you look at, whether you follow sports or entertainment, those that excel in their field, if you had the chance to sit down and pick their brain, you'd find they do things, a little bit extra over others. Like if you want greatness and you want to pursue greatness, you have to be great.
Yeah.
And do great things.
Yeah, I think, in its own right, hard work is a currency. Nothing in this world is for free. So the harder you work, the more things that come to you, right? You pay for your lifestyle, you pay for the life that you want to have based off of the hard work you're willing to put out.
And I think that's why it's important as we talk about all of these, different skills and, even leading back to last episode about vision, you really have to commit to yourself. If you want the best for yourself, you have to really be prepared to be accountable to yourself. And you look yourself in the mirror today and tomorrow and know that you gave yourself 100% every time. And if you fell short and you didn't reach your goal, at least you only have yourself to blame. So we want to make sure everyone is getting as much information as they can, but it's what are you prepared to do with the information once you get it?
Great. Thanks for that, Dean. So number 3 is figure out what defines you. What is special about you that's going to attract people to what you want to do? And this is sometimes, just knowing who you are helps you get up in the morning and be like, okay, hey, you know what? If I know who I am and what my good qualities are about me, I could learn how to leverage those to create the desired outcome that I want. And so a fun exercise, if somebody wants to try this, is go ask a friend. Ask a friend or a family member and say, hey, you know what do you like about me? What are the qualities that really stand out about myself that you notice, right? And maybe you can try it for yourself and see if it differentiates with that. But getting clarity on who you are just makes you more confident as a person. And that clarity just helps define who you want to be and what you want to go after. And another thing you can also do is visualize who you want to be in the future. And if you can see that person of who you want to be in the future, and you may not be there right now, then you have something to strive towards. And I like that process as well, because a lot of times, like, I never pictured myself being a business person or being a company owner. And so that was nothing that I ever pictured, but it was something that, I had to get into the visualization process to become. Because when you start off as a business owner, you don't know how to be one. You're taking a chance, right? Everyone starts off as an employee at some point. We don't know what that experience looks like. We may not be that now, but we know we have the capability to become one. And so that becomes important.
Yeah, and I think a lot of the time, especially when we're starting out, there are a lot of self-doubts that happen. So there's a fun exercise of where you can just basically tell yourself like affirmations, like I am smart, I am hardworking, I am determined, I am resilient. Being able to have those kind of conversations with yourself helps to actually rewrite the recordings that we have in our brain, those preset mind loops that we have that are telling us, I can't do it, I'm not enough. But those are things that we impose on ourselves. The reality is that if we continue to tell ourselves that I can do this, I do have potential, I am talented, I will succeed, eventually they always fall into place. You just have to be able to push yourself out of those comfort zones and push those boundaries so that you start believing the narrative, the new narrative that you put into your head.
Well, that takes us right into point 4, which is build resilience. And those I am statements become so important in building that resilience because you are going to face rejection. You're not always going to get what you want right away. You're going to sometimes have to work hard for it. You're going to have difficult conversations for it. You may have to hear a lot of no's before you hear the yes. And so just knowing who you are with those I am statements gives you that confidence to keep pushing forward. And just understanding it in general, like knowing how to be resilient is understanding that there's going to be problems along the way. There's going to be challenges along the way. And then that forward momentum is what you're looking for all the time. Just to remind yourself of saying, hey, I'm capable of doing this. I'm capable of getting that yes. I am confident. I will have great conversations. Whatever you want to tell yourself, I am going to be successful. And these are the same things that we want to have ingrained in you and you want to have ingrained in yourself to make sure that, whatever you want in life, you're able to achieve. It's just not letting that fear get in. And this is, again, why we're working on the mindset is because we see, when people are doing a lot of these exercises, whether it's phone calls or emails or trying to do sales, the mindset creates this fear program within us and says, oh, you know what? That was very difficult. I don't think I want to hear that again. But then if we remind ourselves of who we are and what we deserve in this world, we're going to go after it, and you're going to realize that the only obstacle between us and going after what we want is this mindset, right? So that's one thing I would always want people to think about is what is that fear preventing us from doing? And so going back to the I am statements, you can get clarity on who you really are. Build that for yourself. Even if you don't see it right now, tell yourself who you want to become, right? And going into number 5 is build the healthy habits to go along with it. You can't be like, I'm an athlete and not be in some sort of decent shape to be able to go kick a ball or throw a football or anything. You want to start building those right habits. What habits do I need to become a great business person? What habits do I need to become a great athlete? What do I need to become a great person in a relationship, right? A great friend. So build the habits that go along with it, and we talk about this when it comes to attracting like the right person in our life. So when we think about attracting the right person, we got to become that person first to be able to attract the person that we want, right? And so just understanding that and saying, okay, well, if I'm 300 pounds, the chances of me attracting somebody at 50 or 100 pounds is very unlikely, right? That mixed match may not work. But, people that have the same habits want to be with each other, right? And so just knowing that if I build these healthy habits, that whatever I want, I'll be able to attract that into my life. And so when it comes to like attracting successful business people into my life, right? So maybe I want to start developing the habits that they have. And the habits are just like the habits of like hard work, right? How do they work? What do they do? What time do they wake up in the morning? What habits do they build? Are they clearing their mind? Are they having a positive attitude when they come into work? What's that attraction towards that person that I can achieve? So it doesn't have to be like I don't need the $1 million homes or the $5,000 suit, but it's how can I just be presentable, and how can I copy the good habits that the person has and be able to embody that into what I'm doing.
Yeah. And it's scientifically proven that a lot of the successful people across the world, that they typically have healthy practices within their daily lives, whether it's a healthy diet, regular exercise, practicing positivity. All of these things are proven to really help push people to become successful. Like we see it with many of the leaders that are out there. So one of the questions on the questionnaire or on the worksheet here is for you to actually go in and assess your own lifestyle. How healthy is your diet? How much are you exercising? Do you practice positivity daily? Just be like brutally honest with yourself and really assess, okay, how much am I doing this and how could I be improving on it? And again, this is all starting points. So go in, be honest, and write down or circle the number that really kind of fits with your lifestyle, because then it tells you where you are and where you have to go.
And it never hurts to seek out those that have the lifestyle that you want to live. Because like Damon was saying, there's a lot you could learn from them. And if you look at their daily habits, like Gail was saying, be brutally honest with yourself. Are your daily habits mirroring theirs? And if not, what daily habits of theirs can you mirror to get closer to your goal, which is by appearance what they're living? So you know, I've had the luxury and the blessings to surround myself by a lot of really great mentors and leaders that I've tried to learn different skills from. And what, you know, I could see this one mentor in particular, you know, where this individual was and what it took to get there. And they told me about the 3 H's, and it was the hardest working and being humble and hungry. And if you know, for him, that was the recipe to success, and just constantly keeping your eye on the prize. So seek those people out and what separates them from you. And if you're nearing your goals, you might find that you're nearing the same life choices that they're making. And if you're not, it might be time for a change.
Definitely. So now that we've talked a little bit about mindset, which is very, very important when you're doing goal setting, we want to also dive into specific sales metrics and setting goals specific to doing sales and continuing to develop and advance your career there. So first things first, if you look at your worksheet, there is actually a table that you're going to go ahead and you're going to fill out either with us here today, or you can take afterwards and fill it out in your own time. But really think about it and start assessing, what do you think you're capable of? And where are you willing to push yourself to? So the first column there, you'll see it's for building daily goals for your sales funnel, is how many prospects are you going to add daily? So, I mean, at the end of the day, you have no sales strategy if you have no prospects. You can't do sales if you aren't going after people. So you need to have an idea of how many prospects are you going to go after. Are you going to be networking and reaching out to 50 or 100 per week, per day? Really assessing what your industry is, what you're willing to put out for output, and go after that. The second is how many calls and emails. Again, if you're not reaching out to people, you're not making connections. So having an idea, okay, I'm going to commit to doing, maybe it's 15 phone calls to start. Maybe it's 5, maybe it's 100. Really assessing what are you willing to put out, and then jotting it down so that it gives you that goal and metric to start moving forward towards. Then it's connections through social media, networking, anything like that. It's really important, especially these days. You know, it is the 21st century. Networking online is very prevalent, depending on the industry. Sometimes it's through like social media, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, anything like that. If you're doing sales and transportation logistics, typically a lot of that's through LinkedIn. That's where a lot of us do our networking. And then sometimes it's just going to events. So putting a commitment down, how often are you going to go out there and actually connect and network with people to build relationships outside of just picking up the phone or writing an email? And then lastly, learning one new thing about your niche or industry. It's going to be really important for you, specifically if you're doing transportation or logistics and you're new to the industry, to really dive in and figure out how everything works. Transportation is a very dynamic field. There are moving parts every single day. One of the reasons why I fell in love with the industry is because it's never the same thing every day. You learn something every single time you walk into the office, or every time you pick up a phone or write an email. So if you're committed to learning one new thing every day, every week, whatever it is, you'll eventually go from being a novice to an expert in your field. And that's when you're really going to start making some really monumental moves within your sales career, because all of a sudden you go from being just somebody who's learning, somebody who's figuring it out, to somebody that people turn to for answers. And that's going to be a really big turning point for you.
Yeah, just when you mentioned though, I was waiting for the word expert, because that's really you want to be when you decide which field that you want to pursue. You want to be an expert in that field, You want to be the problem solver. So if you're learning something new every day, or if you've got your finger on the pulse and you see different trends or things that are happening, in our area, if there's highway closures or severe, we've had extreme elevated avalanche risks and roads get shut down. If you know the seasons or the trends and you're able to roll with the punches, you can approach and maybe update your customer. And this could be somebody that might have overseen or wasn't aware, or when you start teaching them and you're helping them with the problems that they will or are currently encountering, you will have improved that relationship so much and will help your sales and your business with them. And with that, referrals and other opportunities come with it. So it's very important to follow these steps and, build those skills you have within you.
And very often, a lot of times when you're working with, higher ups in companies, they want to work with people on a peer-to-peer level. Of course, we don't all start there. We have to build up the skill sets to become that expert in the industry so that you can have those communications, have those conversations at the same level of the person on the other end. But in order to do that, you have to start. And so that's where hopefully these goals will help you kind of pilot that direction and eventually become an expert in your industry.
I think a lot of that has to do with consistency. Anyone could become an expert. It's just a matter of just getting out there and doing the work. As soon as you realize that, hey, I could do this on a day-to-day basis, you're automatically going to pick up the skill sets. You're automatically going to start learning more because you're going to have a better response every single time you have conversation or interaction. And so this is part of what you're going to be doing.
So now that we kind of have an idea of what kind of metrics you want to start putting into place, now you have to look at it for the short term, the medium term, and the long term. So when you're looking at it, what are your daily goals? I know we did a little bit about this with our vision planning in our last episode, but this is specific to what you're going to put out for your output for sales. So let's look at it and see, okay, on a daily basis, how many calls am I going to do a day? How many emails? How many connections? And then look at it on the weekly basis. The reason why we want to space it out from daily to weekly is because it gives you room to recover. Because, let's be honest, and especially in transportation logistics, things can change like that. So if you have a day where you committed to doing 50 calls and then something happens and you're not going to make those 50 calls, there's just no way, you've been busy, you've got an issue you're dealing with, how do you recover from it from the week? And that's the biggest thing. We don't want to just get knocked off track and then lose our momentum. So if you have a day where maybe things don't work out exactly as planned, you got busy, couldn't do all of the things you committed to, how do you recover the next day? So if you've committed to, say, doing, 300 phone calls for the week and you weren't able to get your 100 or 50 the day before, how do you kind of add them in to implement them into your following week or following day? It also sets you up for accountability. If you get to the end of the week and you're completely off your target, maybe it's time to sit down and reassess what's working, what's not working. How do I make a change in order to meet my goals for the following week? And then you have setting your monthly goals, quarterly goals, and yearly goals. I think for this, it's really important because that's where you're going to start to see the long-term effects of the daily progress and daily commitment. As you put in more and more work and more energy, you're going to start seeing results. And so then you're going to be able to assess, hey, what I'm doing is working, or hey, I think I can make some adjustments to the way I'm doing my sales funnel because maybe things aren't working out exactly the way that you were hoping for. It gives you that reflection period to say, okay, let's do a little reassess and re-navigate so that we can get back on track.
And I think that's the most important thing is the readjustment, because if you notice that and this is the whole reason between like SMART goals, if you're not noticing that you're getting towards your goal and it seems like it's getting a little bit further away from you, it's about taking the readjustments and saying, okay, what can I change? How can I look at this weekly schedule or even daily schedule, and how can I go and try to do more? And sometimes, like, if you talk to us, we're going to try to push you to get the highest volume out, right? But depending on the type of client that you're choosing, maybe volume isn't the right answer. Maybe it's taking your time and doing more research. But depending on, what you pick and what niche you want to be in, now you want to take a look and say, okay, how am I approaching this? Am I approaching it in the right way? Is there adjustments I can make? And that readjustment phase can be in so many different places. We talked about this, whether it's skill sets, whether it's diving deeper into the research that we need to do. Is it in the marketing that we're doing? Maybe we're not providing enough information to the client, right? So taking a look at different aspects or things that are going to help us with the sales. Maybe it's the way that we're wording something. A lot of that happens is if we're not wording it the right way and we change the words around, we get a different result. But a lot of these things require us to take a reflection back at what we're doing, evaluate it, and then try it again.
Yeah. And then one thing that we always do teach with some of our current students as well is that those first 1,000 calls are going to be the most vital. That's where you're going to build your skills. You're going to learn how to do your sales pitch and really learn all the techniques in order to become successful. And then you can start really picking and choosing and doing some reflection and making little tiny adjustments here and there to really perfect your cold calling or your sales techniques or your email techniques. But you have to get those 1,000 in. And that's where I think a lot of people struggle, is that they're, maybe only doing 4 or 5 phone calls a day. How long is it going to take you to get to that 1,000 phone calls if you're only doing a couple? So having those metrics and goals in place pushes you to say, okay, I got to get 50 done because I need to get to 1,000 as quickly as possible. Because once I get to 1,000, I know I'm going to be so much better.
So as a disclaimer, you can do that on your own by just having a recording in front of you and recording your own voice and hearing how you sound. So you can practice that way. You can practice with peers. You can practice with coworkers. But so many different ways to practice that to get your skill set better.
Yeah. At the end of the day, it all comes down to repetition. You have to get the repetition in. If you don't get the repetition in, you're not going to have enough of a control pool for you to figure out what's working and what's not.
I think that's why it's so important to be specific with your goals and just pursue them without mercy. And really the secret ingredient or the magic ingredient in all of this is consistency. We've got... a lot of times when you're putting the work, you might not see results right away, but if you're being consistent with it, all that first quarter work is going to yield fourth quarter results every time. So when you're doing all of these, just remember, you know what your goals are. You're staying the course. And I'd like to close out with this one quote by Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. He's an ex-athlete and now very successful actor, but has worked very hard to get where he's got to. And his quote is, "Success isn't always about greatness. It's about consistency. Consistent hard work leads to success. Greatness will come." With that, everyone, I hope you enjoyed the episode. And again, looking forward to hearing from you with any questions you have. Take notes, complete your worksheets, and we'll see you soon. Thanks.
Bye, guys.